Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Coming out of a meeting with members of the CCC, many market vendors let the media know that they are very displeased with the street side vending that is still taking place. While many believe it is unfair and that everyone should remain at the provided market, others say they are not reaping any profits from being at the new market and will continue vending on the outside. Genevieve Gonzague reports.
Following the meeting with CCC members, some market vendors were up in arms about not being able to vend on the streets. Complaints have been coming in that some vendors from the market are sending out persons with trolleys to sell on their behalf, while others vend on the sidewalks in the afternoon. Market coordinator Augustine Victor explained that people will always have issues with rules or adapting to protocol. However, the CCC will do what must be done to ensure that the rules are adhered to at the new provisions market. He says it makes no sense that vendors agitated for a new market yet are still going on the outside to sell their produce.
We cannot let a few 6-7 vendors try to control the Castries Constituency Council. We build a new market, and that market have to utilize. We will make sure that the vendors remain there, put security, put the place clean and nice, and that's where everybody will come to able to buy the produce and everything else. I have spoke to the vendors afternoon. If we have to extend the market until 8 o'clock in the night, we will extend the market until 8 o'clock. But all vending will come to the new market. The people have the booth there. All of them that making noise there have a booth. So when the people come in the afternoon, they say the vendors over there, everybody will come there to the vendors. That's all.
Some vendors, however, had strong opinions on the new rules. One afternoon vendor, Valencia Perino, lamented that she feels she is being deprived.
I am a farmer, I am an afternoon vendor, and City Council is depriving me from making $1 because of COVID. Our sales has dropped drastically. You come in the market, you there sleeping and you not selling. For the month 5 there, I throw crate of plantain, I throw fruits already. You know, you keep throwing all your stuff because you are not selling. You understand? They have no consideration, no compassion for afternoon vendors. Well, they said they are arresting us. Well, I'm ready to get arrested. I have to get fed in my country. I have to get fed in my country. I will not go and steal. I want to do my honest living. There's no work. I am the only breadwinner in the house. I don't have to pay the bills, so I have to make our way from to pay my bills.
The irate vendor says that afternoon vendors provide a service to late shoppers, bus drivers, and other persons who may not have the time to come to the market during the day or after a long day at work. Another vendor announced that she supports wholeheartedly the decision to stop roadside vending of any kind.
The first week, everything was okay. Second week, okay. When the people start going out and sell everywhere, things just shut down one time. Everybody have to stay inside and sell. No vending outside. Come and stay inside. Stay inside. No vending outside. Stay inside. Yes. So we stand for that. We put our foot down for that.
On the other hand, Deborah Fadia Felicia says she understands that it may be unfair, but she will not stop vending outside unless everyone has to follow that rule, as she has lots of financial obligations to meet.
I know it's unfair to them, but there are people that vendor and they're selling in their van. They park their vehicle there and they're buying stuff just like me and they're selling it in their van. Until they don't take out them from there, I go on the street and sell my goods because I'm not selling in the street. If they put everybody inside, I will not go on the road. Until they don't put all vendors inside of the market, I go on the road and sell my goods because I need money to pay my bills too.
Market vendors let out all their heart's content. Reporting from the New Provisions Market, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
The Castries Constituency Council, CCC, met with vendors at the Provisions Market Wednesday. Present to hear the grievances of vendors was the Press and Communications Manager, Jason Hollingseed, along with Market Coordinator, Augustine Victor. Vendors took the opportunity to air all of their issues.
The Castries City Council met with vendors at the New Provisions Market to discuss some of their grievances, as well as inform and encourage them to follow the rules and regulations for the upkeep and running of the markets. Press and Communications Manager in the Office of the Mayor, Jason Hollandseed, indicated that the meeting held at the New Provisions Market on Wednesday morning was simply part of the Castries Constituency Council's continued consultation with vendors. He explained that as with the issuing of rules and regulations, there was much contention, but that was expected.
Part of the contention was the fact that some of our vendors they leave the stalls and they go vend on the sidewalks, right? What we're trying to do here, we're trying to bring in all our customers to this central location to obtain the produce. So if there's a situation where we have some vendors on the sidewalk and some persons vending at this facility, you would always get that contention, you understand? So we were trying to explain that situation to them as best as possible, that all vendors need to be at this new facility, and it does not make sense having paid millions of dollars to build this new facility, and we have vendors leaving this facility and going back on the sidewalk. It does not augur well for development, and what we're trying to do to present a structured and professional image to our vendors.
Hollandseed explained that some vendors had an issue with the request that no vendors leave the market site or send trolleys of goods to be sold on the roadside. He also explained that vendors will now have to ensure they are registered at the CCC.
That is the only rule, as far as I could recall, that they have an issue with. But some of the other rules and regulations are basic, that they registered as vendors, because currently we have another situation where a number of vendors are coming to council for job letters so that they could apply for the government subvention, the government incentive to vendors. So if they are registered, it makes it easier for them. You understand? So, those are part of it, just some teething issues, but all in all, we're happy that majority of them, they do understand our perspective, and the fact that what we want to do is to drive customers into this new facility instead of purchasing stuff on the sidewalks.
He says some vendors were unhappy with such announcements. However, the majority gave the impression that they understood the rationale behind the rules and regulations. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
Minister for National Security and Justice, Senator Herman Gil Francis, has explained that gradually, as the forensics lab in St. Lucia receives more equipment, the speed with which criminal cases and investigations are resolved will increase. He is calling on members of the public to bear with the Royal St. Lucia Police Force as they try to use the resources that are currently at their disposal.
St. Lucia has a number of unresolved and cold cases. Minister for National Security and Justice, Herman Gil Francis, explained that with investigations into crimes, the results usually take time, particularly given the lack of resources in St. Lucia.
And I want to tell people that what is CSI and CSI New York and CSI Miami Vice and things, it doesn't happen that way. It takes time, okay? So even the other countries that are more advanced than us, they have cold cases too. And it is being able to get a team of officers who are properly trained. And again, that's where the training comes in. I don't think we have any officer here, per se, who has had training in cold cases and so on. And when you're dealing with cold cases, you need a proper lab. You need a fantastic lab to be able to assist you.
He explained that there are many issues hindering the conclusion of cases on island, some of which include the existence of only paper files at most police stations. He has assured that the police force is moving steadily towards digitization. Francis also clarified that while the human resource of the force may be determined to do their best, the issue is there is little to no equipment available to the force. He did, however, sing praises to the forensic lab. Though not at 5-star standard, it has been able to aid in a few cases.
But again, sometimes it's the equipment that we don't have to be able to do it. The RSS gave us some equipment last year to assist us with some kits, and that is there. Now we have the lab. The lab has not reached the stage that we want it to be, so that to be self-sufficient in that, especially with ballistics, firearms and this sort of things, and writing trace evidence and this sort of things. We have not reached that stage yet. But they have been able to assist us tremendously. They actually solved, well, you can only know whether it was successful 100% when it goes to court and we win the cases. But we are able to identify 2 suspects in 2 homicides. Without that, without the lab, the input of the lab, we would not have been able to do it. The lab has now been able to identify a serial rapist. Okay, and the person is a Bali, and the number of the rapes that were done, we can now tie him because of the evidence that the lab has had.
Francis disclosed that the government is looking to fund the lab by the end of the year in order to deal with more DNA cases. The Minister for Justice asserted that while it will take time to resolve the physical cases, it has been suggested that officers reach out to victims of crimes in order to keep them abreast with what is going on with the cases.
I've been speaking to the police officers from day one that we should practice what you call VIP, victim-inspired policing. Some senior officer must be assigned to the victims of these matters. So Ms. Joseph is really, although her son is the one who's killed, but she's the victim, okay? And we must keep with her and us to give her as much information as possible. There's sometimes the information is so sensitive that you cannot disclose it, or it might jeopardize her. And she may not do it willingly. She may be speaking to her friends and said, well, boy, you know, the police tell me they get this and they get that, and what happens? You jeopardize the case. So there are things that you can see and there are things that but you must be in contact with her.
The minister is adamant that sooner rather than later, St. Lucia will be seeing more cases being resolved with more urgency and efficiency. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
Recent actions of taking down statues of historical figures known to hold racist views has caused Black Lives Matter activists to also call for the removal of statues of Eurocentric depictions of Jesus Christ. The president of ICA and member of the St. Lucian Black Lives Matter Committee, Aaron Alexander, is weighing in on the matter. He highlights that the black race is the only racial group known to worship a religious figure who is of another race. Rochelle Gonzalez reports.
The uprising of the Black Lives Matter movement has opened the door for a new social debate to be addressed, and advocates are taking on the task full speed ahead. Earlier this week, outspoken and controversial U.S. activist Shaun King made a call for the dismantling of the image of a white Jesus Christ. King suggested that the imagery fuels the scourge of white supremacy. Right here in St. Lucia, his sentiments were echoed by a local activist who applauded the call. President for the Ionola Council for the Advancement of Rastafari and member of the St. Lucian Black Lives Matter Committee, Aaron Alexander, said blacks need to revert to worshipping the black god of Abyssinia and Ethiopia, which is the divine heritage of black people. He said every race has their god except for blacks, who worship a Caucasian god, a god used to keep black people at the heels of whites.
The white people thought it was important to paint Jesus white, to give the white race power and superiority, to say, well, okay, the white people are superior to black people because, look, even Jesus is white. So we are superior over black people. We say nonsense. We say crap. The black man king is Haile Selassie, and the more people embrace that philosophy, the more powerful we'll become as a black race and a black nation.
Alexander said the poverty of blacks today is a direct result of slavery, and Jesus was used as a weapon in the matter.
On the slave plantation, they used to beat Jesus into you. So if you unless you didn't surrender and say, Jesus loves me or I love Jesus, they had the whip on your back. So that was used as a weapon against black people. And this is one of the things that we suffer. And even today, a lot of religious leaders and so-called pastors, all black men and so on, they could build big churches. But do you see them building factories? Do you see them opening black banks? Do you see them doing these kind of things on commercial level to empower black people? You don't see them doing that. They're using the same weapon of the oppressor, which is the religion and the white Jesus and all these things, to continually dominate our people. So we as Rastafari, that's when Rastafari came out and Rastafari said, God is black. Everybody like, how dare you? How dare you?
Alexander said there is a difference between spirituality and religion, and so until we learn the difference, as well as study the spiritual history of Africans, then blacks today will remain lost.
The African people had a very high sense of spirituality, and I always ask black people, before they were taught about Jesus on the slave plantation, who did we worship as a people? Who are our gods, before Jesus, the whole Jesus story came about? And when we could answer that question, people will realize that this whole religion is part of the domination of black people, that it was used as a weapon and as a tool to dominate black people. Because when the Europeans came to colonize us and came to take us as slaves, they came with a Bible in their hand, and in one hand, and a gun in the other hand. So they overpower us, and when it was said and done, they tell us, close our hands, clasp your hand, and close your eyes to pray. When we open our hands, we had the Bible. When we open our eyes, we had the Bible in our hands, and they had our land in their hands.
Scholars have for years pointed out that portions of the Bible depicted Jesus as a dark-skinned man with hair of woolly texture. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I'm Rochelle Gonzalez.
This is the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Stay with us. There's more coming up after the break.